Do is say, hey, give me 10 phrasal verbs with their definition and example sentences in English. Then you would learn the phrasal verbs, and then you could say, now give me a test on these phrasal verbs and don't tell me the answers yet. Then you do the test, then you ask it to tell you the answers, and you mark your own test. I mean, if you've never heard of this before, you're probably thinking, like, wow, does ChatGPT know everything? Can it replace teachers? Well, I'm going to give you my opinion on that at the end of the video. But for now, I'm going to show you my favorite way that it can help you with your English. I love this way. Okay, so ChatGPT can help you with your writing skills in English. It can give you feedback, it can help you with your grammar, it can correct your spelling, and it can also help you with your sentence structure. And you can even get advice and feedback on how to make your text more engaging, more dynamic, more fun, more interesting, or more structured. I mean, this can be an absolutely incredible way to practice your English writing if you're preparing for an exam. But you can also use it if you're writing an important email for work. You can go to ChatGPT, put the email there, and say, please correct this email. And you can even say, please make this sound more professional. And it will change some of the vocabulary and some of the expressions to make that email sound more formal and more professional and change the tone. Maybe you want it to sound more friendly. So just say, make this email sound more friendly. And in about 3 seconds, you will have the more friendly version of your email. If you are using it just to improve your English or to practice for a writing exam, don't just ask it to correct your text. After it has corrected your text, ask it to summarize the corrections it has made. And then you can actually see the mistakes you've made, see why they were wrong, and learn from those mistakes so that you actually improve, which is the idea, for next time. This is another amazing way that you can use ChatGPT to practice your English. Now, it's ChatGPT, so it is actually a chatbot, and you can have a chat with it. Just say, hey, can we have a conversation about volcanoes? And it will start a conversation with you about volcanoes. You might then want to say, great, let's do this, but could you correct my English while we are chatting? And it will say, of course. And you can have a conversation with it, typing, and it will correct your English as you are talking with it. This simulated conversation reminds me of when I was learning French when I was about 17 or 18, when chat rooms were still a thing, and you could go and communicate in a virtual room with people from around the world. I used to do this in French, and it was a great way just to get your mind into communicating in a foreign language. It just helps you get that communication practice, and it's just a bit of fun. Obviously, when I did it in chat rooms, it was exciting because you were talking to people from different parts of the world. Here, you're talking to a robot, but you get corrections, and it's still a great way to chat about any topic in English. And of course, ChatGPT can also help you with your reading comprehension skills. It can provide you with an article. If you're interested in volcanoes, you could say, hey, could you give me a 100-word article or 200-word article about volcanoes? And it will give you one. If the text is too advanced, as I said before, you can just say, hey, could you put that in simpler English, please? Or if you want to really challenge yourself and really push your English vocabulary and learn new structures, then you could say, hey, could you put this in more advanced English for me, please? And then you can ask it to summarize some of the key vocabulary from that article, and it'll just give you a list of some of the key vocabulary on the topic of volcanoes. And again, if you're unsure about some of those words, just ask it to define them, give you a definition, use it in some examples to help you expand your vocabulary. Now, another way that you can use this to help you improve your reading comprehension, and this is another good tactic if you're practicing for an exam, once you've got the article, just ask it to provide some questions on the article. Say, please provide 5 reading comprehension questions on this article, and it will give you them. And once you've answered them, ask it for the answers and check your answers. So now for the big scary question. Well, I don't think so. I think people generally enjoy learning from other people, not from robots. I think it's more dynamic, it's more engaging, it's more personal. I mean, I think of the subjects that I loved at school, and I loved them because I loved the teachers that were teaching them. My French teachers were all amazing, and it's because of them that I followed a life in languages. If I had had a horrible French teacher at school, then who knows? I might be a scientist or something right now. So yes, this is a fantastic tool. It's really futuristic, it's really fun, and it can really help you with everything I've mentioned today. But I think it will be a really useful addition to a human teacher rather than a replacement for a human teacher. So what do you think? Have you used ChatGPT for anything? What have you used it for? And which other ways do you know that we could use it to help us learn English? Let everybody know in the comments. So even after watching this video, if you still want to learn with a human, you can do 3 things. 1, you can download that book. There, I teach you all the common mistakes that students make in English. Secondly, you can subscribe to this channel. You know how to subscribe on YouTube by now, I'm sure. And thirdly, you can watch that video next, because YouTube is a clever robot too, and YouTube thinks that you are going to love that video. So, enjoy that book, it's free, and I'll see you in that video next. Bye for now. There are so many expressions with prepositions in English, so let's learn some, including on the way, in the way, and by the way. I'm also going to teach you the best way to memorize these expressions so that they stick in your head like glue. In my most recent video, I taught you when to use prepositions when you're talking about things like place, location, position, time. There, I teach you lots of rules for using prepositions, but I also mention that there are some expressions that simply have no rule, and that we have to learn the expressions as a group of words. So that's what we're going to learn in today's lesson. Now, I could just give you a list of 30 preposition phrases and say, hey, learn them. But I want to teach you a much more effective way of learning these expressions and learning them with the correct preposition. And here's the technique that I recommend you use. Create a little story, just a few sentences, using as many of the expressions as possible that include the same preposition. It sounds so simple, but if you learn them in context, and if you learn them with other expressions that have the same preposition, it's going to be easier for you to remember them. So here's my first story using today's first preposition. Can you guess which preposition we're going to look at first? Have a look at the story and see if you can guess which one. You've got 5 seconds. Go. That's right, the first preposition is in. Here's my story. Who's in charge here? I'm not in the mood to wait. In fact, I'm in a terrible mood. I paid for this iPad in advance, but my excitement was in vain. I want to see the manager in person now, and I'm in a hurry. I have to be at work in a minute, otherwise I'll be in trouble. Simple. So here you have 10 common expressions in English which use the word in. There's no logic why they include in, so we have to learn them as a group of words. So the expressions I want you to learn from this little story are to be in charge of something or someone. Now, a very common mistake that students make is using the word the responsible. I am the responsible of the shop. I am the responsible of 10 people. That's incorrect in English. You cannot say the responsible. You can say I'm responsible for blah de blah, but the most common way is saying I'm in charge. I'm in charge of the shop. I'm in charge of 10 people. As I said, this is a really, really common mistake. Get my book. That fixes all the most common mistakes that students like you make in English. The next expression was, oh, and it's free. Click up there to get it. Oh, there's a link in the description. Okay, number 2 was in the mood for something. I'm not in the mood to wait, which is the same as I don't feel like waiting. And talking of mood, which is how you feel, which is obviously up and down. But if you are in a good mood, then you're having a happy moment. And if you're in a bad mood, then you are sad or angry or just feeling down. Are you in a good mood? No, I'm in a terrible mood. In this comparison, doesn't work. In advance, this is what you do when you buy something on Amazon. You pay, the money leaves your account, and then you get the product. You don't pay after you get the product. You don't pay when you get the product. You pay in advance. You pay before you get the product. If you do something in vain, it means that it was pointless. There's 4 in English. Firstly, we use it when we are describing a function of something. Why we use something. What is the purpose? What is the function? What is the reason this thing exists? For example, a kettle. What's a kettle? Well, a kettle is used for boiling water. We drink a lot of tea in England. A kettle is a very, very important part of our life. I use the kettle many times a day. But if I'm describing a kettle to a student, I would say, well, a kettle is something we use for boiling water. A kettle is something we use for boiling water. Be careful to use the ing form of the verb after for in this context. For boiling water. A kettle is used for boiling water. A kettle is used for making tea. Next, we use for when we are doing something to help someone. So, for example, could you put the kettle on for me, please? Could you put the kettle on for me, please? This is an expression which we use in my family at least 10 times a day. Every 2 or 3 hours, one of us will say to the other person, could you put the kettle on for me, please? For me. Okay, you're doing it to help me. I'll make my own cup of tea. That's okay. But could you put the kettle on for me? Could you put the water in the kettle and turn it on for me? For me. You're helping me, so you do it for me. Next, we use for when we are talking about a period of time. I mainly teach Spanish-speaking students, and the equivalent of this in Spanish is durante. Durante tiempo is for time. Durante los minutos, for 2 minutes. For. So when we are talking about a quantity of time, we use for. I've been waiting for that cup of tea for 10 minutes now. I've been waiting for that cup of tea for 10 minutes now. We also use for when we are talking about benefits. The reason why something is good for you. For example, drinking tea is good for you. Drinking tea is good for your health. Exercise is good for your health. Broccoli is good for you. Oh, this cream is good for your skin. Right, we also use for when we're talking about a motive or a reason. Now, wait a second. Didn't we use that explanation for to? Yes, we did. You can use to or for when you are talking about the motive or a reason for doing something. The difference is that with to, we follow it with a verb. For example, let's go to a cafe to have a cup of tea. Okay, let's go to the cafe. Why? What's the reason? What's the motive? What's the purpose? Why? To have a cup of tea. Let's go to the cafe to have a cup of tea. Okay, to verb. However, with for, we use a noun. Let's go to the cafe. Why? For what reason? For what purpose? For a cup of tea. Let's go to the cafe for a cup of tea. For plus noun. For a cup of tea. Okay, 2 more. Firstly, appointments. When we're making an appointment, we make an appointment for a specific date. Yes, I've called a hotel and I've reserved afternoon tea for 3 o'clock. I've reserved afternoon tea for 3 o'clock. And finally, we use for when we are talking about an opinion, whether you agree or disagree with something. We can say, are you for or against it? Are you for Brexit or are you against Brexit? Brexit. Alright, give this video a thumbs up if you have enjoyed it, and if it's your first time here, subscribe to the channel. I would love to have you as one of my students. Thanks for being here. Remember to download my book. The link is coming soon, and I'll see you in the next English lesson. Bye for now. So much confusion. Most of my students use the when they shouldn't use the, and don't use the when they should use the.